we're good.
Okay, I think we're good. Um, so hello everyone. Good evening. I trust you are doing amazing. It's good to have everyone back. I think it's been a while we did this, and you know, here we are once again. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for joining tonight's session. Um, it's really great having you guys here. A quick, introduction before we get started. As some of you know, we've been doing PHP talk session for a while, since as far back as 2023 and 2025. I don't think we've done so much sessions as we used to do. And we decided to, after PHP Connect and everything that has been going on, we thought that we have to bring that back and see how we could get started again with the sessions. We also discovered that in the community that we had, a lot of people who don't have any idea about PHP itself, or some that have, some experience with PHP, but they get to talk about how, they didn't learn it properly, and all of that, and they have to go back to the basics. And we thought, why not let's just get started once again. So rather than talking about the deeper concepts that we usually do, let's just get to the very beginning. And I feel like this session is even for everyone, not just beginners as well, people who are looking to get started in PHP. I feel like even for experts and advanced level guys, this is more like a refresher, something that will help us refresh our minds to all of that. And, there was no better person to do that than Elisha Ukpong over here, one of our organizers as well. So, please help me welcome Elisha Ukpong, who is a software developer and, a PHP expert, to help us talk about PHP for beginners. So I just also want to add that this is a recorded session as well. I think some of you are aware, but this is going to be a recorded session. So for those of you that network um, may not be favorable to, you would get a recording on our YouTube once that is up as well. So once again, thank you very much for joining tonight's session. And I really do hope that you learned something very useful in this session. Elisha Ukpong, over to you.
Okay, hi. Any emoji if you can hear me. Okay. We are going to just talk about PHP. It's a very, very, very basic introduction that we're trying to build up from the beginning to see how we can get back into the flow that we had going on. PHP. So what is PHP is what we're going to be talking about today. And then I'll also dabble into a very little bit of code itself to see how we can make sense of the ideas that we have. Okay, so what is PHP? PHP is a hypertext preprocessor, a very powerful server-side scripting language that is primarily designed for the web. It's a code structure or a coding language, a programming language that is run on the server. Now we have different types of, I think, languages, some that are server-side, some that are client-side. JavaScript, which we know is client-side, it's executed on the client, on the browser, on whatsoever client is consuming your backend services. So for PHP, it is being run on the backend. It does its logic, computation, and everything on the backend, on the server. I want to assume that we know what a server is. So server is just a laptop or an infrastructure that you open up to the world to access anything on. The laptop you're currently using to join this meeting can be a server if you wanted to. So it's just anything can be a server. It's just something that you open up the traffic beyond yourself. So anybody can remotely hook into it and read the content of that particular device. That just makes it a server. PHP started a long time ago. We've had different versions, the first version, um, and a few more versions that has come over the line. It has progressed. I think the past 30 years. Yes, PHP came in 1995 by a really amazing guy. Forgotten his name. Forgotten his name. And then a few other people came in and started working on PHP. So it moved from a little experiment where a guy was trying to have a CV online and then have counters. And it moved from that to powering a large subset of the internet infrastructure now, mostly through WordPress. And in recent times, more other frameworks are coming up. PHP is in continuous development. Currently, I think we're working on releasing PHP 8 point something. The 8 is out now. Yes, I'm sure. So yeah, there is continuous development on the PHP ecosystem. So there's no point where you feel that it's going to get stale or there will be no more support again. Support is currently coming in, and we are exploring how to make the language pretty modern and upbeat to add some Gen Z vibes to it. So where is it used? PHP is used on the web, primarily on the web. We also have PHP on the terminal. You could build CLI applications, but the most part where you would see PHP thrive much is on the web, powering web-based services for applications. So it powers massive platforms like WordPress. WordPress is used primarily. WordPress is built on PHP. Laravel, which is gaining so much popularity in recent times, is also a framework of PHP. It's just an opinionated way you do things in PHP. We also have Symfony, we have Slim, we have um, Slim. Yeah, then there is this other one that Brent is working on. Can't remember the name of the framework, but things are sprouting up here and there. The community is really active and engaging. So if you're looking to get into PHP, there is so much support available to get whatever you need done. At the early part of Facebook, they used PHP, but I think now they have their own custom tweak of what it is. Yes, PHP is also very open source. So if you want to look into the mechanics under that makes it work, you can. It compiles down to C, on the lower level, but that's beyond the context for today. Yeah, that's PHP. It can make you a lot of money. It has a very low learning curve. So even if you start out today, if you start out in the morning, before the end of the day, you can have a fully functional and working system. Now, this low learning curve also has its demerits, but I think we'll just get to that point sometime later in the talk. Beautiful. So how then do I run PHP on my environment? There are various ways which PHP can run on your environment. We could have, though we're not going to delve into all of this in details, the setup part. What we're doing today is just introducing you to the concept. So maybe on subsequent, the next session, we might look at actually setting up your system for PHP and having your first script up. So setting up your development environment, there are a few ways you can do it. We have XAMPP, mostly for the Windows side. We have XAMPP, Laragon, MAMP. AMP is for, yeah, Windows. You can use XAMPP, MAMP for Windows, MySQL, I think. Then for Linux systems, you can go bare metal, installing your PHP executable right into your system and running it. So you install a local server based on what it is you can manage. Since most of us, if you're starting out development, you're most likely on a Windows system. So XAMPP is your best bet. There is not so much technical setup you have to do. You just install the application. Is an exe file, install it, click start on the services you need, and boom, you're ready to run your first PHP script. It's going to create a folder for you in your drive. So htdocs www, just go to that folder and put in your scripts there. The script that you put in there would be accessible on your browser locally, just locally. Locally only. I have to really specify that, so you don't go to tell somebody I have a website localhost 6,000, and they try localhost 6,000 and it's not working. Like, what's happening? So the localhost, whatever ports you're going to provide, will work only on your local system while you are developing. So that's it for the Windows side. For the Linux side, there is a bit more technical knowledge required to get it up and running. You need to install the PHP repository, Andre something, and then install the version of PHP that you want: PHP 7.3, 7.4, PHP 8, 8.1, 2, whichever one you want, you specify and then have it set up. It works. Now with XAMPP here, the XAMPP we're using here, it's going to give you Apache too. Apache, it's a web server that would make your browser know how to interpret PHP. But if you're setting it up on your Linux device, you have to manually install PHP, manually install either Apache or Nginx or Kadi. These are the three options we have for web servers that would interpret your PHP script. When you're done with that, you also have to install MySQL if you want to have a database integration. So there is more technical knowledge required when you're setting up PHP on a Linux system. It's also the same thing when you're setting up Mac OS, which is a flavor of Linux. You still have to do the normal: install your server separately, install your PHP interpreter, if that's the right word, separately, and all of that. Then it's also going to be accessible on your device, but it will be accessible differently on your Linux and on your Linux flavors, whatever flavor of Linux. You don't have a specific htdocs or the folder that you put things in, and it is accessible. So you would now have to set up your web server to know which folder to look into, but that's on another level. PHP by itself also ships with a semi, should I call it semi? No, it ships with its own um um I don't know what to call it, but it ships with its own server, if to use the right word, but it's not production grade. You can have PHP dash capital S, then localhost provided the ports, and that particular folder would be available at whatever ports you just provided for it. But that doesn't scale, which is why we had to mention the Apache and Kadi and Nginx. Okay, moving on. Are we following so far, or we're following so far? Okay, beautiful.
Yes, we are.
Okay, beautiful. So now, after we've spoken about PHP, what it is, the this, the that, what are the core building blocks and the syntaxes for PHP? So we have a few concepts that is at the bare basics for PHP, and it's variables and constants, data types, and then outputs. I wouldn't say comment, but it's part of it. But the core is the variables, the constants, the data type. I mean, it's data that we're going to be working with all through. And then we also have control structures. But we can just start with variable, constants, and data types. So now our variables, it always starts with a dollar sign. Variables would go into the code editor and play around. But let me just, we'll have like 10-15 minutes to play around with the code editor. So variables always start with a dollar sign. So if you're learning PHP, there's high signs, you're going to be rich in dollars, Yeah. So variables start with a dollar sign. Constants are defined using the defined function. Defined function. Function is also a cost construct on PHP basics. We'll get to that. Then constants are certain things that you don't want to change. You don't want the value to change. You define it once and it doesn't change. Example would be your name. From this year to next year and the next few years, even by God's grace, when you're no more around, your name remains your name. Nothing switches your name for anything. So that's a constant. Such values that you want to be constant, it's what you defined once using the define keyword, and it holds the value across the PHP request response lifecycle. It cannot be changed. But things like the variables, like the name defines variables, those can be changed, and they start with the dollar keyword. Now we have a few data types that PHP understands. We have string, we have integer, we have float, we have bool, and we have array. Now, what is a string? A string is a combination of, excuse me, alphanumeric characters. A string is a combination of alphanumeric characters. So any combination of alphanumeric characters that you can bring together is a string. You call that a string. It's not a word, it's not a phrase, it's not a sentence when you're referring to it in the PHP's context. It's called string. Any combination of alphanumeric characters, including spaces, including special characters, are called strings. Now, what are integers? Integers are whole numbers, numbers without decimal points. 2, 3, 7,000, 8,000, 9,050. Any combination of numerics only is called an integer. An integer. So, for example, your age, you're 15, you're 27, you're 32, you're 1, that's an integer. So integers don't have decimals. Now, when we introduce decimals in, they become floats. So for example, we could have 23. That's an integer. As soon as we add point something, it becomes what we call a float. These terminologies are really, really important so that when you're walking around with your PHP and you see them, you understand certain things, or why your system is saying expected integer got float, data inconsistency errors, etc., etc., data type errors, etc., etc. So we have strings, integers, and floats. Anything decimal, no matter the decimal point, as soon as decimal gets introduced, is a string. Now we have Boolean data types. Booleans are the result of logical expressions, the ors, the ands, zors, nors, etc. So if we say is today 12th September, what we would get as the answer is false. So that expression is not true. Now, if we say is today October 26th, we can say yes. So it's just the state of yes and no, state of ones and zeros, which is the core or the basics of that binaries. So it's called booleans. When you see one stand by itself, it has put, there is, we'll get to typecasting. Let me not go ahead of myself. So true and false are booleans. They are the only boolean values that we have. Now, after that, we get into arrays. What are arrays? If you're coming from Python, they will call it lists. It's a data structure where you can organize data that are related into one container. It can hold strings, integer, float, bools all together, right? You can hold them all together. If you say this is an array, what it just means is, like, imagine you have a cupboard with different spaces where you can just slot things in at random. That's what arrays are. They are a data structure that holds more than one data type, or more than one data. It's multi-dimensional. We also have multi-dimensional arrays. We have arrays that are integer, associate forgotten that association, some associatable array. I'll get the right term. So Strings, integers, floats, bools, arrays, etc. can be assigned into variables, and PHP is not a strongly typed language. What this means is a variable can hold string, and along the line, it can change to hold integer, it can change to hold float, bool, etc. But in certain programming languages like Java, C, which is really strongly typed, if you start out a variable to say this variable holds string, it cannot hold any other thing apart from the data type string. So if you switch it from the string data type to something else, you have an error. In recent time, PHP has been improving on their typing system, but it's still user dependent. If you want to type, you can, but it's not opinionated on the typing side. So outputs, how do we see the value of the computation that we do? By using the echo keyword, the print keyword, we are able to display output to the web browser that we're using. We're able to display output to the terminal if we're building a CLI application, etc. So everything that has to do with showing output, we use echo and print. I think we'll now get into in the next 10 minutes just trying out a few scripts to see how this thing actually works in real time. Next slide. Oh, okay. Still on the basics. So I mentioned control structures earlier on. Control structures. What are control structures? Control structures are how we decide the path that our programs run in. So for example, you want to move from point A to point B, and then there are different routes. You can use the C route, you can use the D route, you can use the E route. Now, all of them at the end of the day will still arrive you at B. So how do you decide if you're going to use A? How do you decide if you're going to use B? How do you decide if you're going to use C? All of this falls into something that we spoke about earlier, which is the data type bool and expression. So control structures are just a way we use logical expressions to decide how our program runs. We use logical expressions to decide how our programs run. If a person is this, that, do this, else, do this other one. So we tell it, okay, if this happens, do this, that doesn't happen, do that. Then we have switch statements in the situation where we want to take certain actions. It's if else, switch are closely related. If else and switch are closely related. I said closely because they have contexts where switch really shines and if else doesn't shine so much. And then we also have situations where switch wouldn't be the best fit, but they all control the flow in our application. Then we have loops. Loops are basically how much we want to repeat a particular sequence. For example, most of us that are musically inclined, they could tell something like the chorus is going to repeat for 7 times before we move into the hook. So instead of writing the chorus times 7, you can bring in a loop. You write the chorus once, tell it how many times to display, and then you just allow the program is going to run and display it for that number of times, and when it's done, it will auto exit. It has its initial parameter, it has its expression, and it has its exit strategy, so it does not run for forever till your server gives up. So a quick story: back in university year 1, I wasn't necessarily taking the course, but my friends in computer science had a course they took called Q Basic. That was my very first appreciation of programming language, and they had an assignment where they needed to build a matrix. I wasn't familiar with the concept of loops, so I had to manually run this matrix as many times as I wanted. And for some reasons, I had access to the lecturer, and then when she became a close friend. When she looked at what I did, I was like, so if you were to do this 100 times, mean you're going to type this times 100? And I just sound like, yes. So, and then she was like, don't you know the concept of loops where you can just specify what you need in one line and the program handles repeating it for as much time as you want. I was like, oh wow, that's really, really cool. So loops here, helps us reduce the amount of time we have to manually write commands. We just give it the number of time we want it to run using the for, the while, for each of them has where they shine, but they're all loops at the end of the day for repetition. So what we've been able to, get here is that we can decide how our program flows based on certain expressions, and expressions are logical. That's using ands, ors, etc. Ands and ors are the most important, the most reoccurring ones we use. I've rarely seen people use or ors, etc. But it's available if you need. Then we also looked at switch. It's used for selecting one of many code blocks to be executed based on a single variable or expression. So yeah, switch, like I said, switch is also for organizing or directing your program. Everyone has its place where it really, really flies so much. Okay, now let's go into another very core basics for PHP. We'll get into, I have some practice challenges that I prepared for this, but I would love us to first of all just run through everything, so when we open the code editor, we know we're done with slides. Okay, arrays and functions. This is another part of PHP. We had seen arrays a bit when I was talking about the data types. So for here now, what are arrays? Yes, I was looking for the word indexed array and associative arrays. Skipped my mind. So we have arrays, like I said, it's data structures. It holds more than one data unit. So consider variables to be like a bucket that you can pour in water. Consider a variable to be a plastic bottle of Coke. It's just a container. Then you can pour in Coke, you can drink off the Coke and then pour in water. It's still going to hold the water because all it is a container. Now, what you put inside the container decides what it is called. That's where the data types comes in. So if I get a Coca-Cola bottle and then strip off the tag, pour in water and give it to someone, what would they say? This is a bottle of water. If I pull it out, pour out the water, and then pour in grease into the bottle, this will like, this is a bottle of grease. So whatsoever we put into the variable decides the type that the variable bears. That's what we're trying to explain earlier. Now, let's put typing into context. Now, what typing now does is, when you put that water, you can now paste a label water. When you put grease, you can now paste the label grease. So that's the type. When you put in a string, it becomes a string. It's now labeled as a string. But in other languages where typing is strong, what that does is, before you even bring that container, your label, you must put the label. So you would say Coke. So if someone comes and tries to pour water in, the container might hold it, but the person, the program, the interpreter will start shouting, you put water inside Coke bottle, we're not going to agree. Your program will break. It will not work. It's like having a quality assurance expert come and see what inside Coke bottle and just pours it out, or tells you this is wrong, fix it. So that's like how to relate what we just explained to real life. Now, arrays is like having the crates. Beautiful. Arrays is like the crates of the crate that holds all the minerals. So it has a standard crate, has 12 spaces. 12 or 24? 12 or 24? Should be 24. Okay. Daniel is not married. That's what I've asked him. So arrays is like the container. It has ability to hold more than one data type, or it has the ability to hold more than one data at a time. Variables holds just one data, a string, that's it. An integer, that's it. A float, that's it. And when you when you output that variable, it gives you the content that it has. But for array, it's different. Array has the ability to hold more than one thing, just like the crate. So your crate can have 3 spaces, you can have 5 spaces, it can have 7 spaces, it can have 100. It is very dynamic, which is also PHP is a dynamic language. In other languages like Java, C, you have to pre-define how many things that array can hold before even putting it into use. It's like saying, I need a crate. It's going to hold just 3 things, not more, and then you collect. Throughout using that crate, you cannot put in more than 3 things. But for PHP, it's like magic. They said, I need a crate. They just give you. You can, on the fly, as you keep stacking things, it's automatically making more space for it. You put 7, you collect. You remove it and put 3. It still diminishes to 3. You bring 100, it collects. It's like there's an analogy I wanted to give now. Well, let's leave it. It's just like something that keeps taking and taking and taking without being satisfied. Whatever you give it to collect, you collect from it, it shrinks. And then for most cases, we, on very rare, very, very rare occasions, I think PHP does garbage collecting by itself. Else, in certain languages that doesn't, when you shrink all of these things, you have to manually free up the memory spaces that it uses. Kieran, you want to chime in? I saw your hand. Okay. So we have indexed arrays, numeric keys, and we have associative arrays, keys that key value pairs, and non-key value pairs and numeric key value pairs are called associative. When we get into the code side, we're going to have a look at that. We have various functions that support arrays count, array push, array work, array pad, shift, unshift, pop, push, etc., etc. There's so many of it. I'll give resources at the end of the day. And then we have functions. Functions are defined reusable blocks of codes. Reusable blocks of code. So if you have a certain logical flow that you do in one place, and you might have chances of doing the very same in another place, instead of explicitly writing them on the different files, you can declare something called a function and then put in that logic inside the function, and you can reuse it at any point by just calling the name of that function. It can receive parameters, it can return outputs, it can receive functions too, and it can return functions. That's called higher order functions. We'll probably not get to that part. So when you need to repeat something, you need to repeat something a number of times, you use the control structures. Then if you want to reuse something, not over a count, you want to reuse something sparsely, you can put it inside functions so that whenever you need it, you get it. It's just a way of arranging things. For example, you go to your wardrobe and you arrange your t-shirts one side, you arrange your trousers one side. It just gives you ability to compartmentalize and make things look clean. Now, whenever you need to wear a t-shirt for any event, you just know where to go, pull in your t-shirt, and then you can wear it. So it's a way to segregate and arrange your codes so that it can be reused easily. Okay, now we move on to, okay, this is hands-on. We might not have time to get into this. Submit a form, choose a method, look into PHP, super global, sanitize, and display. So there is one more thing I want to talk about, which we will not look into it, but it's still really, really good. We have like 15 minutes to go to know about. Wait. Beautiful. So PHP also has the ability to handle files. You can create a file, write content to that file, read content from that file, or generally process the contents of the file. For example, you can create CSV files from the data you retrieve from your database, export files out. You can also import data into your system using CSV. So when you upload the CSV, it's going to, using a package, or if you're really, really good, using a normal PHP logics to write it up, read the contents of the files, decide how you want to process it, and then process. So PHP has that capacity to, you can upload files, store them on your server, you can upload files, store them on a different server, etc., etc., etc. Then the last slide is going to be likely what we're going to look at when we have this again, how we can make our PHP setup interact with our database. Then we can probably also look into object-oriented programming, and then talk about some frameworks. This is like where this series would go next, all things equal. So now that we've been able to run through all of this, we'll go back to we'll go back to this and then get into the code editor and see how to write out very, very simple, easy stuff to deepen or register the knowledge that we just brought. I'm going to stop sharing this screen and then share my entire screen window. Okay, share this window. Please let me know if you see a very fine code editor. Okay, beautiful. So from our slides, the first thing we're going to look at is just create a very simple script that echoes hello world to the browser or the CLI, and then we can just take it from there. From the slides, we learned about it's a syntax called hello or print that is used to echo out output, to show out output, to display output, etc., etc. So we're going to we'll try both echo and then we'll try print. So if we say hello world here, oh, PHP files have the extension .php. The name can be anything, is it alphanumerics? Yes, alphanumerics, but it starts with an alphabet and then goes in. So we could have index 54. I think that should be fine. I don't know if 54 index would work. I haven't tried, but we mostly just call index. So when you see the file index, it's like the entry point of the application. Anytime you see index.php, that's where the application starts out. That's like the entry point for the application. So if we have hello world here, how do we run this and get this value? There are two ways. We spoke about setting up PHP such that it can run on the browser, and we said PHP ships with its own server. So we're going to use the PHP server for this one and see how that works. So to start up the PHP server in the folder, you write PHP. Oh, I forgot to make my terminal bigger. I don't know how to do that right now. Hold on. Okay. 30. I really hope that works. Okay, is it more clear now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, beautiful. So we start with PHP -s, if I remember correctly, localhost 9000. Now you can use any port address that you want. Anything after the colon is the ports. You could use 9000. You could use 8080. 80 is the most frequent. 8082 is 9000, 9003. There is a range, but any number you can think of, I'm sure, would work. Localhost here, it's just going to each device has an IP address. So localhost is going to map to whatever IP address your device is and make it available. So let's try. Beautiful. So we can now see here, it says PHP 8.3.6 development server. Development server is just used for development. So if we click this in localhost 9,000. Beautiful. I'll have to share my entire screen so that when I switch to the browser, it still works. All right. Stop sharing and share entire screen. Okay, it should come up anytime now. Is it up? No?
No, it's not up yet.
Okay, try that again. Said something went wrong. Good? Good. Okay, so if you look at this, you can see the hello world that we had from our codes. So that's working. Now, if we switch it to say hello, I'm seeing Jackson. So we say hello, Jackson, and then we come here. See, it switches to the PHP. So you see, running PHP index.php interprets the file on our terminal. Hello, Jackson. So there are ways. These are various ways of running a PHP script. We said it's a scripting program. It's a scripting language. So this is a string. This hello Jackson, and we said strings are combinations of alphanumeric. So this is a string as is, and strings are delimited by double quotes or by single quotes. It's still going to work regardless. It has its differences, but I think we can just leave that differences for now. If you're using double quotes or you're using single quotes, they all work. Now we were using echo sync, so we can also use print and see what happens. See, it still works. Then we go to the browser and it still works. That's printing things out on the server, on the web application, output from PHP. So let's look into, we have 7 minutes more. Let's look into variables. Now, we said that variables starts with the $sign and can be any combination of alphanumerics, except that it does not start with numbers. It must start with a value alphabet. It could be beautiful. So it could be this, anything at all. Doesn't even have to make sense. And then it can combine with numbers, but it just shouldn't start with a number. That's where we have problems. So having known that, I'm going to pick a name. Jackson is on my face. I can say Jackson. So this variable contains the value Jackson. This is our bottle, and this is the content of the bottle. So if we want to output the content of the bottle, we are going to use the bottle to, refer to it. Doing this takes up a memory space. It puts Jackson into a memory bytes, bits, but that's something very, very different. So we could now say something like echo name. And then let's see let me add a line break here. So if we run this here, you can see that we are still getting Jackson. If we go to our application and then reload, you see we are getting the value of name. So that's what variables does for us. It's a way for us to put in value into containers that can be reused over and over and over. You could say something like, why not just use Jackson? Why are we putting it inside name? You might have a script that uses Jackson in like 20 places. It's not good practice to keep repeating that in a lot of places, because that leaves numerous footprints. If Jackson Jackson gets married and changes his name to Jackson Johnson, you have to now go inside your application and start looking for where you had Jackson Jackson and change it to Jackson Johnson. That's one. And then when you get into object-oriented programming, where the name would differ based on the value you're getting from the database, you can't just use the value direct because you don't even have it. You now start using variables or properties that now point to the core value that you're looking for. But we'll get to all of that. So now, if we say if we say there should be okay. If you look at the type of this, it's going to be a string. Now, this also can be a string. Remember, we said alphanumeric. So this is alphanumeric and it can also be a string. Beautiful. Now we can go to the next thing. Let me keep this as Jackson. We can go to another one, which is age. We can say 27 without the delimiters, 27. Now, this is an integer. It's a number, whole number, 27, whole number. So as soon as it's standing by itself, a number or a combination of numbers that does not have decimals, it's an integer. Yeah. So as if we now move into adding money on hand, 200 naira, 20 kobo. Beautiful. So if we now say this automatically becomes a float because of this decimal point here. The decimal point we have on the right hand side makes it a float. If we remove that decimal point and it stays at 200, it becomes an integer. That's a very clear distinction. Now, even if you have 0 at the decimal point side, so far there is a decimal point, it becomes, a float. So what gives it an integer is removing this. I hope you're following. So now we can combine it and make a statement saying echo hello name, you are 8 years old and have, oh, this was here, shouldn't have been here, and have money on hand, dollars on hand. So this is us doing a string. It is still a string using is it interpolation? Should be, yeah, using the variables that we have. So what do you think is going to be the value of this string that we have here? Let me close this. Hello, you are this years old and have this dollar on hand. What do you think is going to be the value? Just internalize it, think it in your brain so that when we run it, you see if you were correct. I'll add echo new line here. So let's run this on the browser first and see. Beautiful. So you see it says, hello, Jackson Jackson, you are 27 years old and have $200 on hand. Where is our float? Where is our float? Oh, okay. 34. Beautiful. That was typecasting I was talking about earlier. So hello, Jackson Jackson, you are 27 years old and have $200.34 on hand. Now with this, whatever, we can change this to match. If it's not Jackson Jackson and it is Daniel Mabadije, all we need to just do is change this to Daniel Mabadije. Daniel is up to 35 and I'm sure he has a lot of money. So $20,034. That's all we need to change. On the variable side, this remains. So if we now come here and reload, see, hello, Daniel Mabadije, you are 35 years old and have $20,034 on hand. So that's where variable flies so much. It helps us hold these values in memory and then use it whenever we want. If we run it on the terminal, it's still going to give us the same value, same total value. Okay, beautiful. So where does arrays come in? Should we come into array first, or should we talk about control structures? Okay, let's talk about control structures. So we can say the very classic example, which is if you're above a particular age, you can have a bottle of beer, but if you're not, you can't. How do we do this? We can say if, remember I said it's if is to use, you pass if an expression, a logical expression, and then if it is true, you run a certain block. If it's not, you run another block. So if age equals to 18, echo you can buy bottle of beer. Else you can't buy a bottle of beer. Who is your daddy? Okay, so we are still going to have this echoed out. Hello, Daniel, you're this age and have money on hand. But where it gets, oh, I've passed my time. Okay. Give me just like up to 9:10. So we now go further to say if Daniel is older than 18, he can buy a bottle of beer. If he's not, we need to know where his daddy is or who his daddy is. If he's the president, maybe we can allow him. I'm joking. So now we would run. We are not going to see both of these. We're going to see one of it based on this expression here. So let's try that here and see. Beautiful. So hello, Daniel. No, let me add this so we can. It's not working. Oh, and the browser will be different. Oh, here, I think. Yep. Okay. So let me add another one of that. Just go one mistake. Yep. So we still see hello, Daniel Mabadije. You're 35 years old. And because it's more than 35, we can now say, see, you can buy a bottle of beer. So we use control structure to decide what runs on our application. If we now say Daniel is 15, many years ago he was, and then we run the logic again, you now see that it's saying you can't buy a bottle of beer. Who is it, daddy? So control structures decide what we do in the application, how it flows, ifs and all. In certain certain programming languages that don't have ifs, etc., we use gotos to decide the flow of the program. Goto, I think, yeah, goto, and etc., etc., etc. So that's for control structures. Then for functions, let's quickly simulate functions. We could have this, all of this, let's just say all of this inside a function and then call it when we need it. Okay. Yeah, so we could say something like functions are defined starting from the keyword function. We could say name and ability. And then we just drag all of this inside the function. Beautiful. So we have variables. Functions introduce something called scopes, but that's beyond the outline for today's class. I'll just go ahead with providing this here, and subsequently it will make sense, or we could just maybe discuss it on the group as a follow-up, so I don't take so much time. So if we run our code now, what will we see? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Because when you introduce a function, you are putting the codes into a reusable container, which means It's not just going to run by itself until you ask it to run, until you explicitly call the function. And how do we do that? We do that by saying the function, writing out the function name, and then providing the parameters for it. So this is function declaration, and this is function execution. So at this point now, we're just telling the function, this is what you're going to do. Anytime that we want you, this is exactly what we want you to do. Nothing more, nothing less. And then we now call the function and say, okay, do that thing that we told you you should do. And it will just do exactly. So if we now come to our browser and reload, now we will see it working. We can do it many times. So we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. We can do it as many times as possible. Now you see that this is easier to do than repeating this in 5 places, for example. It's already Herculean. And if you edit, if you say you can now, so you have to look for all the other 5 places and update, and ability to introduce bugs becomes very, very easy. So when we use functions now, we define it in one place, a source of truth, and we can reuse it as many times as possible. In the case we need to change, we just change it in one place. So if we come here, you can see that it's repeating as many times as we want. So that's what function does. And we've looked at functions, we looked at control structures, we've looked at variables. So now let's look at one last one, and that would be arrays. So how do we define arrays? We define arrays using the opening and closing brace. Square brackets, yes. So this defines an array. This construct defines an array. This array is ready to receive values. We can also use this other one. Both of them are the same thing. These two are the same thing, but I prefer the square brackets. So how do we now put in value into this array? Very, very simple. You just type it and use comma to delimit it. 15. Good. So you can put as many things as possible that you want to put in. It will not reject. You can put it and put it and put it. Now, in this case, yeah, I just remember put it wherever you want to put it. In this case, how do we, the question now would be, okay, we have it, it's a container. How do we access these containers? That is where we get into the concept of indexed arrays and associative arrays. We access this using the name of the array, the opening braces, the opening and closing square bracket, and an index. And an index. That's it. So in this case, it's like having a way to define multiple variables without defining multiple variables. So one variable behaving like numerous variables. So in this case now, an array it's zero index. So it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this now is going to give you Daniel Mabadeje. And if I want to print out Elisha, I have to count 0, 1, 2, 3. So I'll say something like 3. Echo. Yeah. So let's go to the, I'll comment this out, and then we go to our browser to see what we get. Beautiful. So we get Daniel's name, and then we get my name. It's a way for you to group cohesive data together. So that's the long and short of it. I'm already out of time. We'll probably have subsequent ones where we can go into each of these in details, or we'll just have resources that you can glance over in your free time, so that when we're meeting again, you have better idea about what and which. So this was a very simple and straightforward introduction to PHP. Nothing complicated, everything very, very straightforward. And I just hope we've been able to, do that and you have understanding. If you have any questions, so we don't keep ourselves waiting here, just put it in the group and we'll have everybody chime in on it asynchronously. So PHP is a very versatile server-side language that embeds into HTML, but we haven't been able to look into that embedding side right now. The environment is set up using local server stacks, XAMPP, MAMS. PHP has its own local development server, Apache, Nginx, Caddy, etc., etc. We have control flows, the ifs, the loops, etc. In the loops, we have for each, we have for, we have whiles. All they do is just repeat things over a number of times. Then for data structures, we have arrays. Then we also have functions. We have super globals, but we haven't gotten into super globals just yet. The next one. So we would have, given time, built something I was hoping I didn't really, we prepare regardless, and it just takes a different route. So this is what PHP is on a core level, on a very beginner basic, everything stripped away, very naked skeleton level. This is PHP. It thrives on the variables, the control structures, the repeatability functions, switch statements. It runs in the terminal, it runs on the browser, etc., etc., etc. Now, if you want to learn more, there is the official PHP manual. There is the W3 schools. There is Laracast, free to an extent, but not really, really free. Then there is PHP the right way. I'm going to provide these learning resources across to everybody on the group, and then we can just go back to the basics. The fun thing is, no matter how much you know about PHP, there is something you will always learn when you go back to the basics to look at how things are done under the hood. PHP compiles down to C, the C programming language. So if you're writing PHP, you're in essence at a lower level writing C, compiles back to C, if I'm correct. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, either you ask on the chat here or you just put it inside the group and we would chime in on it, and other people can also share their perspectives on that. Thank you very much, and have an amazing evening. Daniel, over to you now.
All right. Thank you so much, Elisha Ukpong. That was really an amazing session. We're really excited. I really do hope that we learn something new. I see a lot of people here who are actually very experienced in PHP, and but I really do hope that we got something out of this session as well. Thank you very much for joining tonight's session. I think I'll just do closing remarks. If you are not yet on PHP Talks community, PHP Talks community is a community where we discuss PHP, everything about PHP. I mean, recently we'll be doing a lot of Laravel, and like I said, when we started this session, I mentioned that we thought it was right to actually start from the basics once again, as we saw that was a challenge for people. We've had numerous people inside the community talk about, hey, I want to get started with PHP. How do I do that? And a lot of times we recommend YouTube links to them, but we also understand that there's this level of, should I say, confidence you get when you actually have closer people that you can easily ask questions, even after a session or after learning something, right? And yeah, that's what makes us do what we do. We said we could start our series once again. So if you are not yet on our community, I would urge you to do that. I will drop the link. Our first group is already full, so we have a second WhatsApp group where you could join and also get to discuss about PHP as well. We are going to have this session again next month, November, the last Sunday of November, 8 p.m. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Anyone who is interested in any PHP, I really do believe this is the right time, to get the person involved and actually learn this. And for those that, because I observed people were leaving and coming back, I want to assume that will probably be network. There will be a recording as well that will be shared, later on about this session. Once again, thank you so much for joining tonight's session. And I do hope you have a great week ahead. Good night.
Good night.